All right, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well on this morning. I'm gonna refresh and make sure that it's showing up in the feed. All right, there we go. Excellent. So I want to welcome everybody to Paint with Lovejoy. This is my daily demo, and I try to keep them at about 30 minutes. A few of them we've gone a little bit over. But as you're looking at the screen right now, you are seeing what we're going to be painting today, and it is a lizard. It will be a fire salamander. And what I want you to do is after the video is done, I will upload the traceable for this guy. But what I highly recommend is actually you pause the screen, draw what you see, and then move on with the video. And by drawing what you see, you're strengthening your power of observation. Now, if you are one of my first time and beginner painters and that seems a little scary for you, relax. Check the links in the description box below. And like I said, after this video, I will upload this as a traceable to my website, and you can purchase that, download it, and then with carbon paper, you can transfer this image onto your canvas. And for my first time and beginner painters, it's kind of a nice way to take away the beginning stress and frustration of getting a painting started. So utilize that as you need. So for today, we are going to be using the palette knife, and I'll be doing the scraping method. And we're going to be putting some blues and purples and even blacks in here. And we'll be starting with that first because I want that to dry a little bit while we're working on the background. Then I'm going to come back in, and with the yellow and orange, we're going to put the fire spots for this fire salamander. And this was a viewer request, so please leave your requests in the comment box below. And if you scroll to the top of the comment box or the chat, you can see what I'll be doing over the next couple of days, and quite a few viewer requests in there. All right, so first, again, we're using the palette knife, and I am using a smaller one. You can use the larger one and possibly use that small edge if you want. Or if you don't have a knife at home, anything with kind of a stiff, either cardboard or plastic. If you're got a credit card that you no longer use, you can actually use a credit card. And really, it's just this kind of scraping method. And it is extremely stress relieving. So I am filling up this lizard with blue first, and then we're going to put a little bit of dark purple on the underbelly. Then I'll scrape black on top of it. And by putting these colors on first, when we scrape the black on top of it, we'll be able to see a hint of some of these colors underneath. Now, as you're scraping with the knife, it is kind of a very untraditional tool. So don't feel bad if you need to turn your canvas sideways, hold the knife kind of weird. It's actually good that you're using an untraditional tool because it's making your brain kind of think fresh and try new things. And this is kind of nice because you can be a little bit sloppier with it. And the scraping method is highly therapeutic. And with that being said right there, just take a deep breath for me. Inhale, relax, let it all out. We do have so many crazy things happening in the world, but we are all in it together. There's no avoiding it. And it is really beautiful to see how the community is coming together and people are looking out for each other. So there's still some very, very awesome aspects to humanity. So again, we're filling in this lizard, filling in the inside. And if you happen to overlap your black outlines, don't stress. We'll be putting other layers on top of the background in a few moments. And with this scraping, throw all your anxiety, all your frustrations, all your stress, throw it into the canvas. These canvas can actually take a decent beating. And I am painting on a stretched canvas today, so I don't know if you guys can see it at home, but I do have a little bit of a give, kind of like a drum, to where I'm pushing against the knife, or pushing against the canvas with the knife. So if you're painting on a panel, it is a little bit more of a rigid surface, and I actually prefer that for the knife work. But if you're painting on a canvas, you can still do the exact same method. And if you need to, if you're wanting to use a brush for this, go right ahead. If you don't have any of those supplies, a knife or brushes or paint, You can actually do this video and any of my videos with crayons, markers, colored pencils, pretty much anything that you have on hand. It doesn't matter what your materials are, it's just important that you actually just paint and go through the process. And I think maybe next week I'll actually do a few in colored pencil, maybe a few in some crayons. I'm actually gonna have to go find some crayons. And I do have pastels, so maybe I'll do a video with that. But again, just utilize what you have. Art is never ever about having the right supplies, but it's about the process. And that scraping method has a therapy in of itself. All right. Oh, two more little legs to finish in here. And like I said, if you want to use a brush for this, if you are using the knife, feel free to do that. The more that you kind of work with the knife and get comfortable with holding it, the easier it is for some of these smaller spaces. And I am painting on an 8x10 canvas today. It is kind of small, but it does help for keeping the demos to about 30 minutes. But you can do this on any size canvas. And if you are going that traceable route and you download that, you can download or you can use that traceable as many times as you want, and you are welcome to resize it to fit the size of your canvas. All right, so we've got a nice blue lizard. I'm gonna give that just a few minutes to dry and go ahead and kind of put a first layer on our background. And I am actually gonna make a light teal for that. So grabbing just a touch of that teal, some of that white, mixing it in there. You can make whatever shade you want. And if you want to do a different color than what I'm doing, go right ahead and do that. And no matter what you paint today, please send me a picture of what you paint. You can email those to paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com or tag me in your social media stuff at or hashtag paintwithlovejoy. But like I say in all my videos, and I truly mean it, I get really excited when I'm having my coffee and I open up my emails and I see a bunch of student pictures in there. So don't be shy on sharing your progress, even if it's a painting from a different video, from a different teacher. Just the fact that so many more people are attempting creativity at home, stepping out of their comfort zone, it's awesome. Because right now, with current circumstances, we are all out of our comfort zone. And it is kind of scary, but we can move forward from there. So I am trying to keep my canvas in the same kind of orientation for you guys at home to watch. And I do have the canvas taped to the board behind it so it doesn't move. But if you're at home and you need to kind of turn your canvas sideways, upside down, just because it makes it easier to reach an area, go right ahead and do that. And should you need to make any of your colors a second or third time, don't stress about getting the exact same shade every time. Variety in your background is just an added benefit. And if you are painting a stretched canvas like this today, carry that color over the top, the side, and the bottom. It looks really nice when you hang this on the wall and the color wraps around the edge. Completely optional. In my personal work, I tend to forget to do that, so I end up painting my edges just solid black at the end. So that is an option for you as well. And I like mine with the solid black just because it kind of frames it a little bit more as you look at it on the wall, and I just personally like that. So as you're painting, if you did what I just did and maybe you picked up some of that blue, don't stress about it. Bob Ross coined it right. We're just gonna embrace it as a happy accident. A lot of things in life are happy accidents. All right, so as I shift here to kind of keep this in the same position, and sometimes getting some of those blue specks in there, it just works. So don't feel like you have to make this perfect. Nothing in life is truly perfect because we all have different versions of perfect. So don't try to stress out to achieve somebody else's version, ever in life. All right, I actually didn't think about how many little tiny spaces were in here when I drew this out. All right, and again, if you get kind of sloppy and you overlap another color, that just means you're having fun. Keep with it. If it truly, truly bothers you, you can take a paper towel, wipe it off, and then reapply the color that you want on there. But please, anything with painting, especially if you're starting out and one of my first timers, don't take yourself too seriously. It is pretty amazing how much your brain and your muscles are learning each time that you paint. So I try to stress in all my classes that, again, it's not about being perfect, but it's about learning a new skill or maybe accomplishing something than you did compared to your last painting. So the only time you should compare paintings is to yourself, to what you painted the last time. Did your skills improve? Did something make more sense? Did you accomplish the goal that you set out to accomplish? Basically, just half the time painting is, just learning more about yourself. You're learning what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't work. All right, and I love it when I'm finally at this point because I don't feel like I have begun a painting until there is no canvas space left. So now I feel like I can add more and more layers on here. And the style that I am demonstrating today, this is my traditional style for my professional work. And if you want to check that out, jump over to Lovejoy Creations and check out the art store and my portfolio. All right, so I'm grabbing some purple. We're going to go back into the lizard, and we are going to kind of keep his shadow kind of on his bottom curve because we are imagining that the sun is coming from the top of the canvas. So on the bottom of our gecko, we're going to be scraping in this purple and scraping it right on top of the blue. And it is kind of nice because it makes a new shade. This purple is mixing with the blue because my paint is still wet. And again, it's giving us what we call a cool shadow. If we had a warm shadow, we'd be using warm colors like red or orange or yellow, though we would save the yellow for more the highlight. Right. And again, if you need to move down to one of the smaller little knives that you have, or even little toothpicks if some areas getting a little tough, be creative in your application. And let's get a little bit more underneath his little armpit. And I do sometimes take a quick look and see how it's showing up on screen. I do apologize for the lag. But it still kind of gets the point across. And as you're painting, and it also helps when I look at the screen too, I want you to get in the habit of looking at your painting from a distance of 5 to 10 feet away. And this is the normal viewing distance for just about everything in life. So get in the habit of looking at your artwork from that perspective as well. A lot of times you may like it better from that distance. Nothing's wrong with that. And as you look at it from that distance, you may notice a few things that you want to work on. So as you look at it from that distance, you take a mental note of what you want to work on, and then you go back and work on that. So as I've said in a few of my other demos, painting is a conversation that you are having with yourself. And it's not a right or wrong conversation, it's just a conversation. And you learn something from each one. All right, so I'm going to wipe the knife off again. We're going to be jumping back and forth. We're going to go back to the background. I'm going to put some more white paint on my plate. And I'm going to put some highlights on there. And then I'm going to grab some more of that dark teal and put some shadows on it. And in my work, I actually let each of these layers dry before I move into the next one. So that way I'm kind of almost independently putting colors on, compared to right now to where the new color that I'm putting on is mixing with the wet color underneath. So if you do kind of get into this style of knife painting, try that. Let it dry before you put on another layer and just see how it reacts differently. And if you're inclined to do anything Your instincts are kind of pushing you in that direction, but maybe I don't mention it, or I don't talk about it, or I don't do it. Trust your instincts and go for it, because that's how you're learning. And your instincts are actually quite loud when you are in the creative realm. So trust them and listen to that. And I forgot to explain what I'm doing, but hopefully it's kind of obvious. I'm actually just grabbing that white and putting it kind of in some random areas around my lizard. And I am leaving a bit of texture. So hopefully a little bit of that will stay, and going to throw a few other colors in there. Nice. Hi, Gwen. Thanks for jumping on. Hi, Jen. How are you doing? All right. So yes, this is a very interesting, different type of painting style. And like I said, it is relative to my professional style that I've been doing for about 15, 20 years. And I kind of accidentally fell into this style. When I was in college, I was taking a knife painting class and using oil paint, and it was a palette knife. I think there was an ultramarine blue that I was running out of the color, and I had a lot of it up in the corner of one of my paintings. So I just kind of go, oh, let me grab some of that paint there and put it over here, and just kind of accidentally did the scraping method. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I just kind of went with it. And I believe it was a self-portrait for class. I'll have to see if I still have that. So I do that whole style, I take it into class. My professor went crazy over it, said I need to, push more into that style, dive into it. It just looked awesome and it was fresh. And then she goes, but you failed the assignment because that's not what the assignment was. So I literally heeded her advice and I ran with it. And I liked it because, again, it took out all my stress and frustration. Highly therapeutic to just grab color and scrape and have fun and then feel better afterwards, actually. And just kind of it's been downhill from then. With the other classes that I teach, there was interest in having people learn my style. So I did, taught it in my studio. I do have an online version of that class I taught in the studio, and it's on my Paint with Lovejoy website. And like I said, just super, super therapeutic to apply paint in this way. And because I mainly teach adults who need to de-stress and who think they're not creative, this is a really excellent way to paint, because the online course is a real backwards way to paint, and it gets you out of your head. You're not thinking so much, and you do get a little more lost in the process of painting. So feel free to check that out. Whoops, just lost my knives there. All right, so hopefully that was a bit more of a longer explanation, but hope you guys enjoyed it. What kind of I would just call it scraping palette knife style. And for me personally, I say my style is rather sloppy and expressive. Not everybody wants to be known for a sloppy style, but I like it. All right, so we gave a little bit of time for our lizard to dry. I'm actually going to go in with black paint on top of it. And then we might go back to the background and do a little bit more. Then I'm going to be using the yellow and orange for the fire spots on this salamander. And like I've said on all my videos, you are more than welcome to adjust, change, and make these little tutorials work for you. So again, as I'm scraping the black on here, you can see some of the colors underneath, and I am using a good amount of pressure because, like I said, I don't want it fully opaque, and I want the colors to shine through underneath. So with that pressure, that allows some of those colors to show through. And I am going to be going a little bit closer on the perimeter, kind of reshaping that, and I may move down to the brush for that. Just so I can have a little bit more of a definition and defined perimeter on this lizard, on this salamander. And when you start getting into smaller spaces, maybe holding and using just the tip of the knife, and maybe you hold it a little bit differently than you possibly were holding the larger knife. So again, even if you've been doing it kind of the same way for a while, try something different when you come to a new area. And again, just kind of assess. Does it work? Does it not? Do you need to go back to something else? Do we need to call it a happy accident? All right. And I have noticed that if you smile while you paint, you actually have more fun. And most of my students just laugh at me when I usually say that in class. And hopefully you're laughing right now, and I got you to smile. We have way too much serious stuff going on in the world, so the least I can do is get you guys to smile. And even if you're just laughing at me, I laugh at myself all the time. All right, so just getting this last little leg in there, and then I am going to use a brush to just kind of clean up the edges. There we go. So a little bit of water on my brush. When you're using brushes, you never want your brush dripping wet, but a little bit of water will help the fluidity of your paint depending on your brand of paint. And every time you do purchase a new brand of paint, test it out, because there are huge variances from brand to brand. Same with color to color. Your blue in one brand may be completely different than a blue in another brand. All right, so I'm basically just going to kind of outline our lizard, and I am overlapping the background just a little bit, and I am using light pressure, kind of so I can use just the tip of the brush. So as you're working with the brush and trying to do small lines, light pressure is going to give you a bit of a skinnier line, where a little bit more pressure will give you a bit of a fatter line. And if you can, I don't think you guys can see it on screen, but if you rest your forearm against the table, it makes it a little bit easier to create a steady line. And this does get better with more and more practice. So don't be upset if you can't get this on your very first try. This is something that just, the more your muscles have the memory and the practice of doing it, the easier it becomes. So when I first started working for one of the paint and sip companies in San Diego about, oh my gosh, probably about 10 years ago now, I had been using the knife for so long that I had forgotten about how to use the brush. So it was really kind of cool that as I was like, all right, I remember the pressure, then I'd turn around and tell the class, oh, make sure you do this. So it was really kind of cool as I was relearning the brush to also be the teacher and give some of those tips on the pressure and how to hold it and remembering to breathe. So, and with that just being said, if you feel like you're holding your breath right now, if you exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, it makes it a little bit easier and it'll make your hands a little less shaky. We do tend to, when we're concentrating, we tend to hold our breath, myself included. So even as I'm doing these videos, when I realize I'm holding my breath, then I tell you guys to take a deep breath as well. So when you're painting, don't take yourself too seriously, be kind to yourself. I consider all my students adult kindergartners. And literally the only adult part is if you're consuming alcohol while you're painting. Otherwise, you are just a 5-year-old. We all need to hang out with our 5-year-old a little more often. Whether it's your actual kid, 5-year-old, or your inner child, 5-year-old. And this stay-at-home order is actually an excellent time to get back in touch with your creative side. And I like to tell my students that aside from watching the video right now, hopefully you are not on your phone or another electronic device, and it's a nice little break from the craziness of current society. All right, so almost done with my outline, and again, that just kind of cleaned up the lines. Then I'm going to use the brush and rather thick paint, or kind of glob it on there, for the fire spots on this salamander. Let me get his little toes fixed up. There we go, give him a little pedicure. All right. Go ahead and clean your brush really good. Take another progress picture if you have been taking pictures. I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning, so I apologize. All right, so for this guy, I am sticking with the brush. I'm gonna take some yellow paint, and the yellow is actually a little more bold than I would like it to be. So I'm just gonna grab a touch of orange, and always start out with a small amount of orange. You can always add more, but it's easier to start light and work darker. And I still have a little bit of black paint on my brush, so wiping that off first. There we go. All right, and I actually need quite a bit of this because I don't want the black mixing with it, and that black is still wet. So if you are at home, pause the video, let your paint dry, and then pick this back up after it's dry, and it will be much, much easier for you. All right, so using that pretty thick, and on the fire salamanders, they have these just kind of crazy cool, I guess, spots or weird formations on them. So if you want to pull up an image online, you can mimic the spots on that one, or you can mimic the spots on what you're seeing on the video. And thanks, Mike. Glad you appreciate my teaching style. I can't wait to see what you actually paint. You're gonna have to send me a picture of it. All right. And again, just plan on putting this paint on there pretty thick. And if you're using student grade paint, your paint is a bit on the transparent side. So don't be afraid to apply it rather thick, or apply 2 or 3 coats of it. And that's just because it's student grade paint, and it's got a bit more filler material, but they are more affordable student grade paint compared to artist grade paint. And if you find that you're getting into the groove of painting and you want to try artist grade paint, move up to that paint just one color at a time, so you can kind of notice the difference and see what you like. And again, you can see that I'm applying it pretty thick. I'm trying actually not to have the tips of the bristles touch the canvas, because that's what's going to pull up some of the black paint and also show my brush strokes. So like I said, I am just trying to globbing them on here. These little salamanders are pretty awesome. And if you happen to pick up some of that black paint, if you're doing it while it's wet, just wipe your brush off and reapply. And if you have to make your shade again, if it's a little more orange than the last time or a little more red, that's okay. They actually have nice variations in their spots already. And again, remember to breathe. Exhale as you are touching the brush to the canvas, and you are less shaky in the process. Oh, I got some of that black paint in there because it is a little thicker on that side. Get a few of those little tail markings in there. All right. So I'm actually gonna take some yellow and just put a few little highlights on there, and that will kind of get us to the conclusion of this little demo. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Again, just totally made my day to see a few of you waiting for the live feed to start, so thanks. And if you want to continue to support me, I appreciate all forms of support. So if you share the video, paint along, watch the video, purchase artwork, check out my Patron page as a monthly sponsorship, anything. Like, just the fact that you guys are here right now, that's a huge support, and I am so grateful for that. So as you can see, I'm actually just taking that yellow, globbing it on, and just on a few little dots, adding a bit of a highlight area. I'm not sure if at home if you guys can see it distinctly between the orange and the yellow. So hopefully you can. And again, leave a comment of what you want me to paint in the future. I'm going to try to get a calendar out so you guys can plan a little bit more. But at the beginning of this conversation, the beginning of the video, you'll see where I ask the questions and also give a list for what we'll be painting in the next 3 to 4 days. Pretty much all of them, I think, are viewer requests. So like I said, let me know what you want. All right, so not bad. Thank you guys so much for painting with me today. And again, taking time out of your day to hang out with me for a half hour or so. This really keeps me going, and I appreciate having a schedule. Yes, I think once I get set up, because I'm closing the studio, when I get set up at home, I will do some watercolor demos, as well as possibly some colored pencil and pastels. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll try to get the watercolor one in there a little sooner rather than later. All right, so thank you guys so much. Have a great day, and I will see everyone tomorrow. Cheers.